This is a big one. We're talking about nutrition today. I am going to share something that is going to disappoint the diet industry. Eating for health is not that complicated. And if you hang on to the very end of the episode, I'm going to share with you something that is going to be a game changer for you in keeping this whole process of nutrition simple. Welcome back to the Begin Within Health Show. I know you heard me say it. Eating for health is not that complicated. And I know the thought, hey, if it's complicated, then what about dietitians and nutritionists? And I have some really good friends in that space. So I promise I am not trying to literally, for real, upset those individuals. I know that they do a great job at what they do. And many of them have been a blessing and a benefit to me. The research that I've done, they've been guests on the show multiple times, some of them, and I've learned so much from them. I want to share with you some of the big pieces and kind of put it together with our begin within approach, right? Start from the inside out. The truth is that most people don't have a knowledge problem with nutrition. They do not have a knowledge problem. They know what they should be doing. They have a consistency problem. And that's what I want to focus on today. The consistency problem is there because many people are trying to follow overcomplicated rules that don't work with real life. And as a result, the consistency is a struggle. So today I want to pull together these insights from multiple episodes where I've explored nutrition from different angles, the research on protein and aging, the reality of yo-yo dieting, the power of mindful eating, and natural approaches to eating for health that actually work. Okay, so let's dive in. First of all, I want to talk about protein a little bit. I feel like I'm a bit of a broken record when it comes to protein, but if you want to eat for health, you got to pay attention to that protein. Let's start with that. It's something that's going to impact your health for decades from now if you start focusing on it today. Most people aren't eating enough. All right. That's according to what the experts say. And that's a problem because protein isn't just for bodybuilders, it's for everyone who wants to take good care of their muscle, keep their metabolism functioning, and support their brain health and just overall age well. There was a massive study that I dug into back in episode 250 that looked at protein intake in midlife and how it affected aging outcomes. Give this a listen and check it out. Researchers collected and analyzed data from a huge group of middle aged women who were part of an ongoing long term health study. And here's what they found they ended up looking at 48,762 women in the final analysis. They were aged 38 to 59 at the start of the study, and then they were tracked. They were tracked over several decades to assess their aging outcomes. Interesting, right? Researchers used detailed food frequency questionnaires with these women. They filled out the questionnaires multiple times over the study period to measure the participants' protein intake. And they categorized protein consumption into total protein, animal-based protein, and plant-based protein. So they were looking at those three things and how it was connected to the health outcomes of individuals as they were aging. And wanted to know about something called healthy aging. Healthy aging in this study was defined as reaching older adulthood without developing major chronic diseases. Major chronic diseases, things like cancer, diabetes, or cardiovascular disease, and maintaining good physical and cognitive function. There it is again, cognitive function, right? That's what we want. We want to be able to enjoy life. We want to be able to stay active. We want to be able to remember the things that are important, the people that are important, and continue to have meaningful interactions and relationships with them. The study adjusted for other lifestyle and dietary factors, including physical activity levels, total caloric intake, smoking or not smoking, other nutrient consumption, so that they could make sure that those things weren't influencing the results that they were seeing from protein intake. Now, what happened? What did they find? You can already guess, likely, but the outcome I think is interesting because it's surprisingly clear. Higher protein intake in midlife was linked to better aging. The women who consumed more protein had a higher likelihood of reaching older age in good health. Think about what that means. The protein that you eat now, protein that you eat in your 30s, 40s, 50s is directly connected to how well you function later in life. Your brain needs protein. Your brain needs the amino acids from protein to make neurotransmitters, to repair brain cells, build hormones, ensure proper cell communication, vital for mental clarity, memory, and just overall brain function. So, not getting enough protein is going to affect how healthy our brain is, how well we can concentrate, how stable our mood is. It's absolutely going to affect that. Of course, your muscles, they need protein, right? To avoid age related muscle loss that can really lead to frailty. It can lead to injury and complications. Of course, you've heard it many times, an older loved one perhaps that falls, breaks a bone, and they don't come back from the hospital after that fall, sadly. Protein can help us. The protein we consume now can help us later. And again, there's no guarantees here, friends, right? We are simply talking about what the research indicates in terms of benefits to health. We're talking about reducing risk. We're talking about increasing probability that you're going to live long and strong and healthy. Speaking of bones, breaking bones, bones need protein too. It's essential for them. And getting enough protein can make sure that they stay strong and, of course, decrease the risk of fractures. Everything in your body is constantly breaking down and rebuilding, breaking down and rebuilding. That's life. That's a process of life. We can't stop it. In fact, we need it to happen that way. But protein provides the raw materials that we need for the rebuilding, for healthy rebuilding. So having enough is essential for overall health. And when you're not getting enough protein, especially when you're focusing on losing weight or as you're aging, getting older, if you're not getting enough protein, then your body doesn't have what it needs. And what the experts tell us behind the scenes, what happens is your body starts breaking down your protein, your muscle tissue in order to get those amino acids that it needs for the maybe more priority rebuilding processes that are taking place. And of course, that's what happens during crash dieting. There's not enough essential protein. You cut calories, you don't prioritize protein, and likely you could be losing muscle along with any body fat that you might be getting rid of. So, protein, focus on the protein. How much do you actually need? I don't encourage people to count calories, to use a food scale. Once in a while, use it, get what you need from it. Maybe learn, oh, that's what a portion of this sauerkraut looks like on a plate. But and by the way, sauerkraut doesn't have a lot of protein. I'm just throwing that out as an example of something that you might measure to take a look at the portion size. Here's what I'm telling you. As far as protein goes, what I recommend people do is they count their servings using their hand. Now, a serving of protein, this is a precision nutrition approach to tracking portion sizes. A serving of protein, a portion of protein is about the size of your palm minus the fingers. So I think about like hamburger patty size for most people. but it adjusts based on the size of your hand, which usually correlates to the size of your body. One serving of protein about the size of your hand. So we think about that in terms of whatever meat we're eating, whatever protein source we might be having. Trying to have usually for most people 4 to 8 servings per day. And that's a nice place to start if you're not focusing on protein, you haven't been. Just start tracking portions and see where you fall. Like I said, most of the people that I'm working with, somewhere between 4 to 8 is where they're feeling best, where they're getting the best results. Prioritize that protein though. And what I mean by prioritize is protein first. And we've had experts here on the Begin Within Health show that have encouraged that. Prioritize it, eat it early in your meal to make sure that you get it in. It is so, so, so nutritious for you. And again, I'm not like the protein guru. I'm not a nutritionist, dietitian. I'm just passing on information that I have gotten from them and from some of the amazing scientists that have done research on this. I'm just sharing it. I'm sharing, and I'm working on it as well, making sure that I get plenty in each and every day. So that's protein. That was a big, big topic that we tackled in 2025 here on the show. Here's another one: the yo-yo diet damage. I know that's something that nobody wants to hear, but everyone needs to understand. And that's the yo-yo on the diet, off the diet, on the diet, off the diet is actually making you less healthy, not more healthy. Oh, I went on the diet for a little while. I must have got real healthy. Then I went off it. Then I went on it again. So maybe I'm even more healthy than I was the first time I went on it. Not the case. We're not talking about willpower. We're not talking about character. We're talking about what's literally happening to your body every time you lose weight quickly and then gain it back. I want to share a clip with you from episode number 285, my interview with an awesome nutrition coach, Jen Trepic. Give it a listen.
Like a lot of the diets and things that we've done that create movement on the scale for a finite period of time, they quote unquote work in the short term. What we're actually losing when that scale goes down is water, muscle, and bone, not fat. Well, by the way, muscle is metabolically active. Muscle dictates metabolism. So if what we're losing is water, muscle, and bone, we are losing health. Then, because whatever plan we followed to get there is not sustainable, we go back to old eating habits and the scale stops working. So we're frustrated and we're like, forget it. We go back to these old eating habits. We're taking in more food. We're taking in higher glycemic food likely. We're gaining that weight back, but we have less muscle on our body to be burning that extra fuel, and we're gaining the weight back as fat. So every time we're on that yo-yo, we lose it as water, muscle, and bone, gain it back as fat. Lose it as water, muscle, and bone, gain it back as fat. Over time, we could end up at the same number on the scale that we were before, but by body composition, we are fatter.
Super important to think about when you go through this back and forth, the yo-yo diet. You aren't the same, even if I went back to where I was before. You're not going back to where you were before. A lot of times you might be very likely less healthy than you were before, even if you're really focused on that number on the scale, and the number on the scale says what it used to say before you lost the weight. You didn't go back to where you were. You're in a whole new place that's farther from the place that you want to be very often. So great commentary from Jen Trepic. Thank you so much. But here's the thing, and I will share another clip with you from that episode, because people often blame themselves for this. They think, well, I need to stick to the diet then, and I can't stick to it. I just don't have enough willpower, or I'm so lazy. I can't stick to anything. They condemn themselves. They feel guilty, like they're the problem.
You are not the problem, the system is. And when I say the system, it's not just diet culture, as we talked about. It's every piece of our lives, and I don't mean it in a malicious way, right? But our medical system, we expect our doctors to know this information. It's just not what they were taught. So they don't. but we expect them to know it. We expect them to give us that guidance. And then the way the incentive structures are set up, it reinforces behavior and information that doesn't translate into long-term health. When we look at all of the other, like, social media and supplementation and all these pieces, like, I do a lot in my practice with supplementation, and part of what ends up happening with a lot of the stuff that we see advertised to us is that their objective is fast results, which doesn't necessarily mean long-term.
The system is designed to keep you coming back. Fast results don't last. And that is great for the system, right? The confusion that keeps you scrolling, clicking, buying. You're not broken. The approach is broken. The fix is stop the dieting. Build eating patterns that you can actually keep in your life. Let's talk about biology a little bit and some of the big ahas that I came across this year in 2025 from guests that we had here on the Begin Within Health show. And that's something that really fascinates me because there's so much out there right now in terms of medication and different interventions to manage hunger, or maybe they manage hunger in an effort to manage body weight, right? There's so much out there. And there are natural approaches that we can take, and we're going to talk about some of them right now, that don't have side effects. They don't have really high price tags. They're just utilizing food, the food that's there, and giving some focus in the right places for it. And it has some pretty awesome results, which I discussed with a couple of the guests that I had on the show. One was Dr. Haymeyer, who talked about weight loss medications, and what happens when people stop taking them. We talked about that back in episode 237. The most interesting part of the conversation, I thought, wasn't about the medications, but it was about the natural alternatives that provide similar benefits. Because the medications, they work through specific biological mechanisms, and we can access those same mechanisms naturally. And that's what we talked about in that interview. So give this one a listen. Here's my interview with Dr. Haymeyer from episode 237, just a clip from it.
GLP-1 agonists such as Ozempic, I think it's most helpful to get grounded in just like how they work. What do they do to the body? Number one, they slow emptying from the stomach, meaning that food stays in the stomach for longer than it would otherwise. And why that's useful when it comes to either weight loss or control of diabetes is a few different things. First, let's just start with the weight loss story. When our stomach is stretched, it actually has receptors in it that sense the stretch. And those receptors that sense the stretch communicate to the brain. And when the stomach is stretched, that communication to the brain is, hey, you've been fed. You're not so hungry anymore, right? It starts to engage our satiety response in that manner.
Okay.
Also, when our food stays in our stomach for longer, it's going to more slowly move into our small intestines, which is its next stop. And that means our blood sugar is going to raise more slowly, right? So that's the benefit as it pertains, one of the benefits as it pertains to diabetes. So that stretch of the stomach is, and the delayed emptying of food from the stomach in particular, is one of the ways that these GLP-1 agonists work that's useful, right, for weight loss. We'll just stay on the weight loss world, right? The next thing is they actually do increase our satiety hormones, partially by way of that stretch of the stomach, but also in other ways. They help us feel satisfied. They help us feel like we've just been fed, right? So when you feel fed, you're less likely to eat more. And then in tandem with that, they decrease our hunger hormones. So that's like a match made in heaven. Increased satiety, decreased hunger. You don't want to eat as much, right? So that for a lot of people is ultimately when you hear people say like, "Oh my gosh, so much less food noise." Well, there you go, right? At least some of the ways these are working. And then they also work by stabilizing our blood sugar. So, we're helping our body produce insulin, which then helps carry our carbs out of the bloodstream, which means our blood sugar is going to be a little more stable over time with the same amount of food taken in. But obviously, people are taking in less food, so it's even more advantageous.
Hmm.
So, the four big ways we're going to talk about are, slowing of food emptying from our stomach, increased satiety, decreased hunger, and then that stabilization of blood sugar. Those are the four things that I really focus on when I think about how these GLP-1 agonists work.
All right. So those medications, what do? Slow stomach emptying, increase satiety, decrease hunger, stabilize blood sugar. What's cool is in that interview, that doctor shared with us how we can support those same mechanisms naturally. Give this a listen.
So firstly, I would say like, getting your nutrients restored. That's the first step because with low nutrients, nothing works well when you're deficient.
Mhm.
Nutrients play an essential role. Our vitamins and minerals play an essential role in our enzymes functioning well. So restoring any nutrient deficiencies is step one before you even, do anything else. Step two, I would say, is starting to learn how to check the box for each of these ways GLPs work naturally,
Okay.
right? So slowing the emptying of your stomach, yeah, that is actually something that's useful to do. But we have different ways we can do that. We can do that. My favorite way personally is with fiber, right? So when we consume fiber rich foods, okay, you could take supplements, but why not eat food, right? So fiber rich foods are going to do the same thing. They're going to slow the emptying of foods from your stomach. And that's true whether it's something like lentils or beans or vegetables or artichokes or, like all these wonderful options for foods.
Yes.
Um, there is a supplement called glutamine that also slows the emptying of foods from the stomach. And so, from a supplement standpoint, that's a possible way of proceeding.
Okay.
But the big winner there I love to bring in is fiber for that.
All right. There it is. Surprised, disappointed. The big reveal, fiber. Fiber does what those expensive medications do just through food instead of injections. Or I guess there's pills coming as well down the line. So the fiber, it slows how quickly food leaves your stomach, which means you feel full longer. It helps stabilize your blood sugar so you don't get those crashes that make you reach out for snacks, and it increases satiety hormones and decreases hunger hormones. Fiber, it's right there. It's in food, it's in whole food, unprocessed food, but it's there. And the research is clear. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about increasing our fiber intake for most people up to, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dietitian, I don't know you personally, but for most people, get we're past double digits, not 10 grams a day, 20, more like 30, somewhere in that realm, 30 to 40 grams per day. When people get there, they start to see some of those improvements in hunger, in feeling satisfied longer, in blood sugar regulation and overall metabolic health. And of course, we're not talking about, again, supplements. I know, right? Is there a pill for that? Is there a fiber pill? Yes, you can get like fiber just by itself. You can buy it. But we're talking about actual fiber rich foods because they come with more than just the fiber. They're coming with the vitamins and the minerals that your body also needs. And your body loves real food, it knows what to do with it. get after that. Now, I want to get a little bit more specific about this because I had another conversation that really drove this home with a great guest. His name was Christopher Reed. He literally reversed type 2 diabetes using one simple strategy with whole food. Give this a listen.
So, two types of fiber, right? You've
Yeah.
got insoluble fiber, whole wheat and stuff like whole wheat, right? Your whole brands and stuff like that. Great for your digestion. Doesn't do squat for your sugar. Just won't do anything. And the reason is they call it insoluble because your body can't digest it. Corn being on this list, right? Um, and so that's well, that stuff's great and all, and every health food aisle is chock full of whole fiber sort of stuff. If you're trying to control your sugar, it doesn't really do very much. Soluble fiber, though, which is different. Like I said, that's your beans, your broccolis, your Brussels sprouts, your oatmeals, chickpeas, chia seeds, blah blah blah. All of that stuff you can digest, but your body has to take extra effort to digest it. And so what happens is it kind of gums the works up and it slows down. So any sugar you had in that meal or foods that will become sugar, right? And so, like, let's say I'm having white rice. Like, let's say in lunch, I threw in some white rice with my chicken, right? We did a arroz con pollo, right? And we had a little chicken with our rice with our chicken. The rice is going to metabolize into sugar, but the squash and the broccoli are going to slow it all down. And because they're going to slow it all down, your sugar will never spike. And it's the spikiness. It's why A1C is the measure that doctors use. The spikiness is what does damage to your body. That's what hurts your liver, hurts your gums, hurts everything, is the sugar spikes. And so by eliminating the sugar spikes, you knock diabetes into remission in your pancreas because it's not being asked like what happens when you have a sugar spike, right? If you're a normal, healthy person, you're not a diabetic, you throw down a big old bowl of white rice, right? Your sugar will spike, but your pancreas will then go into hyperdrive and create a ton of insulin. And when it does, it will knock out all that sugar. That's what insulin does, right? Well, in the case of somebody's type 2 diabetes, their pancreas isn't functioning as well. And so it can't absorb, it can't produce as much insulin, and you get these spikes. And those spikes end up being shown up in your A1C number, right?
Yeah.
In soluble fibers case, by eating all this stuff that's slowing down the digestion, you never get the spikes. And so even though your pancreas isn't working quite as well, you're giving it a very big break. And by giving it a break, you give it time to heal and to become more functional. And so over time, you basically get your pancreas function back. It's called insulin resistance. And then as you overcome it, getting less insulin resistant. And so at the end of the day, the soluble fiber is both giving your pancreas the time it needs to do the job it can do, and also less of a load so that you're able to heal up and get more function out of your pancreas.
Isn't that huge? Isn't that awesome? He wasn't just managing his blood sugar with fibrous foods. He was healing his pancreas and giving it a break from the constant spikes, the ups and downs with blood sugar that was going unmanaged. And his approach is so simple that it's almost offensive, I think, to the industry that's trying to cure these metabolic diseases. What he did, and he reveals it in that episode, 12 to 15 grams of soluble fiber per day, right? He's not even going crazy. He's not even hitting the target I told you about earlier. This is episode 282 if you want to listen more. 12 to 15 grams of soluble fiber per day from food. From whole food. Brussels sprouts, chickpeas, beans, broccoli, oatmeal. He's getting fiber from regular food, and it's helped his body to heal. So start small. The thing about adding fiber, don't do it all at once. Okay. Start small, add a little bit per day. Your digestive system needs some time to adapt, but gradually work your way up to where you're feeling best and you're noticing some positive changes. One of the most effective natural strategies for managing hunger, satiety, and blood sugar. No medications, no expensive supplements, just food. And I want to say one more time, I'm not a doctor. I'm a guy just like you. I'm just passing on information, but I have access to a lot of it, and I have access to a lot of really, really smart people. Thank goodness, as a result of this podcast, they're willing to come on and they're willing to share this stuff with us. And I am so happy to pass it on to you. Now, doesn't that sound great? What we just learned, the simplicity there. I love that approach. We're not fighting our biology. We're not just like being hungry and miserable so that we can get healthy. We're not relying on willpower to stick to something that is going to wear us out in the end anyway. We're eating foods that naturally make us feel satisfied, foods that stabilize blood sugar, foods that work with your digestive system and make it healthier. That's sustainable. That's real. That's real health. It's real food. And that's how you build eating patterns that you can maintain for decades, not just for weeks. Now, as you're listening, you might be thinking, okay, all this is just wow, Nate, great, but it sounds complicated. I told you earlier, I want to share with you something that it's just one simple habit. It's one simple approach that can make everything that we talked about today actually work in real life. It can make this all manageable. I'm going to share it with you in a minute, but before I share that, if this episode was interesting for you, one of those episodes I called out, those earlier numbered episodes, go check them out. Go give it a listen. Or share this episode with someone that you care about who's stuck in diet confusion or stuck in the yo-yo cycle. Or if you're like, man, I want some support, I'd love some help. Here's what I would love for you to do. Go to beginwithin.fit/7day, the number seven, and then DAY. Beginwithin.fit/7day. You're going to be able to sign up for free to work with me for 7 days. I'm going to get you moving. I'm going to show you how you can work out at home and then give you a little 5-day crash course as in the 7 days, 5-day crash course to unlearn some of the common diet culture myths and be able to start making a healthier approach to eating, just one small step at a time. But now let me give you the tip to make this all easier. If you only took one thing from the entire episode, this is the thing I want you to remember. Make meals. Okay? That's it. Make real, actual meals. Start thinking in terms of meals. Start your meal with protein so that your body feels supported. Add fiber from some of those foods we mentioned or foods you find that you enjoy from your own research and experimentation. And then eat slowly. Protein, fiber, eat slowly enough to notice when you've had enough. Those are just some really easy ways to kind of get started improving in things that we talked about. And then just eat real square meals. I'm talking about protein. I'm talking about veggies. I'm talking about healthy, fibrous, if possible, carbohydrates and healthy fats. Just eat those together as a meal, all on the same plate. Sit down and eat 2 to 4 times a day. Most of the people that I work with, that's what they're doing. And of course, quantities depend on their body size and their goals, their activity level, those kinds of things. But just eat some square meals. You're going to get your protein in, you're going to get your fiber, and you're going to get the benefits that we have been talking about here. Remember, we started out, said, people don't have a knowledge problem, they have a consistency problem. And I still believe that's true. I don't think that you heard anything today that you didn't really know, that protein is good for you, that fiber is good for you, that slowing down and being more mindful about food is good for you. But consistency is the problem for most of us. So real meals, real satisfying meals, meals that check the boxes that we discussed, make consistency easy. You don't need willpower. You don't need extreme rules, just meals that actually work for your body. Just a square meal, a real one. And of course, your experimentation can continue, right? Try that. keep adjusting, keep adapting. We're all doing that when it comes to our health, but don't stop. I had a client recently that she said, "Oh, my health's been on the back burner." You know what I told her? I was like, "Great. At least it's still on the stove. Keep it on the stove. If it's on the back burner right now, hey, don't beat yourself up. Just keep it a focus. Do something. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward." Hey, thanks for listening. Now, go eat some protein and fiber. Talk with you soon. Keep taking good care of yourself.